Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
At my mom's funeral, my sister said into the mic, he wasn't even there when she died. And then, she looked directly at me like she'd been saving that bullet for years, and now, here in front of 70 grieving friends and family members, she finally had the perfect shot. I didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't even blink. I just stood there, holding the folded obituary like it might somehow shield me from the looks in the room, like it could absorb the quiet shock that rippled through the pews. My Aunt Bev made a noise like a disappointed cough, while Aunt Linda shook her head and whispered something sharp behind a tissue. They nodded, of course they did, and suddenly, it felt like they had all rehearsed this without me. Like Kara had been planning the scene for weeks, maybe months. And honestly, knowing her, maybe she had. I didn't say a damn thing. I just turned around and walked out. My shoes echoed way too loud on the church floor, which only made it worse. Every step I took felt like it belonged to some guilty man trying to disappear into the walls. But I wasn't guilty. I just didn't have the strength to fight ghosts in a room full of people who'd already decided I was the villain in their little family tragedy. Outside, it was hot in that uncomfortable southern spring kind of way, too warm for black wool suits, too sunny for grief. I lit a cigarette even though I hadn't smoked in almost 2 years, just for something to do with my hands. I didn't cry, not then. I was too damn tired to cry. I just kept replaying her voice in my head. My sister, with that fake little tremble she adds when she wants to sound more emotional than she really is, standing there like she was auditioning for a damn Hallmark movie, telling everyone he wasn't even there when she died. What she didn't say was that she made damn sure I wasn't. Rewind 3 weeks. I'd been trying to visit my mom ever since the doctors told us it was the endgame. I live 2 states away, and I work construction, so yeah, my schedule's not exactly flexible. But I called, I texted, I even asked Kara if there was anything she needed help with, and every single time I offered, she shut me down. It's under control, she said. She's sleeping a lot. It's not a good time. She doesn't want visitors. Then one night, I got this voicemail from Mom. It was quiet, her voice barely a whisper, and you could tell she'd recorded it when Kara wasn't around. David, she said, don't feel bad. I know you want to come. But she's making it hard. And I don't want you to come into this mess. Just know I love you. Always have. And that was it. That was the last time I ever heard her voice. I'd called back. No answer. I texted. Read receipts. But no reply. And then, 4 days later, Kara called to say, she's gone. She didn't invite me to be there. Didn't even tell me Mom was in her final hours. And now here she was, standing at a microphone in a church packed with people who thought she was some goddamn saint for taking care of our dying mother, acting like I was some cold-hearted no-show who couldn't be bothered. I wish I could say I went back inside and stood up for myself. That I gave some rousing, honest speech and told everyone the truth. But I didn't. I left. I drove 4 hours back home in total silence. Didn't even turn on the radio. I sat in the quiet like it was a punishment I deserved, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. People say funerals bring closure, that they help you say goodbye. But all that service did was show me how far gone our family already was. There was no fixing it. There was no healing it. There was just this thick, heavy silence between us all now. And I had no intention of breaking it. I didn't talk to anyone for a week. Not my aunts, not Kara, not the family friends who texted meaningless platitudes like, thinking of you, or hope you're okay. I wasn't okay, but I didn't know any of them the truth. Then the phone calls started. At first, it was just a couple here and there, mostly Kara, of course. No voicemails, just her number lighting up my screen. I ignored them. Let them go to voicemail. Then, around week 3, the volume went from annoying to absolutely unhinged. 83 calls. That night alone. Her number popped up so many times, my phone started to lag. Voicemail after voicemail, some of them just silence, others crying, one where she was yelling at someone in the background. I didn't listen to all of them, couldn't bring myself to. But one stood out. The last one. The one that dropped just after 3:30 in the morning. Her voice sounded small, cracked, like the bottom had finally fallen out of whatever performance she'd been putting on. "You need to talk," she said. Just that. 4 words. Then silence. I still didn't answer. Not right away. But something about the way she said it. I don't know. It sounded less like a demand and more like a confession. Like maybe, for the first time in her damn life, she knew she'd gone too far. But here's the thing about silence. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're defeated. Sometimes silence is just the calm before the storm. Because while Kara thought she'd buried me with her words that day, all she really did was give me the shovel. And I was about to dig everything up. The voicemail just said, "You need to talk." 4 words. No, I'm sorry. No, call me back. Not even the usual guilt-laced barrage that Kara loved to pile on in layered texts or long-winded voice notes where she could pretend she was being the bigger person while still dragging me through the dirt. Just those 4 words, flat, empty, and somehow more honest than anything she'd said in years. That voicemail came around 3:30 in the morning, and I let it sit there for 3 full days before I even played it. I'd seen the missed calls. 83 in one night. That's not desperation, that's unraveling, and I knew better than to step into that fire unprepared. It was a Tuesday when I finally started digging. I had no real plan, just this itch under my skin that wouldn't go away. Something about the way Mom's voice had cracked in that last message she left me before she passed. I opened my laptop and went back through old texts, some from Mom, some from Kara, most of them full of passive-aggressive crap and fake concern, but something stood out the deeper I scrolled. There were gaps. Big ones. Weeks without a reply from Mom, which was weird, because she always responded, even if it was just a thumbs-up emoji or one of those voice-to-text messages with a few mistakes that made her sound like she was yelling in a wind tunnel. I checked my call log too and saw the last outgoing call from Mom was about a month before she died. After that, radio silence. At first, I chalked it up to the cancer, to the pain meds, to her being too tired to keep in touch. But then I found an old thread between her and me, where she said, "I think I'll stop texting for now. Kara's getting annoyed every time my phone dings. I'll call when I can. Love you." That was on a Thursday. I remember because I was supposed to drive down that weekend and she told me not to. Said, "You don't have to come. She's made up her mind." She. Kara. Now that phrase stuck in my head like a splinter in a thumb. She's made up her mind. About what? About keeping me away? About dying without her son in the room? Something was wrong, and I could feel it humming behind every sentence I reread. So I did something I hadn't done since the funeral. I called Aunt Bev. She picked up after 4 rings and tried to play it casual, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't nodded along at my public shaming 3 weeks earlier. "Oh, David," she said, in that tone people use when they want to sound surprised but aren't. "Wasn't expecting to hear from you." "Yeah, I'm sure you weren't," I said, voice flat. "I need to ask you something." "Well, if it's about Kara, I don't want to be in the middle of whatever. It's not about Kara. It's about Mom." That shut her up for a second. I was going through her old messages, I said slowly, and I noticed I stopped hearing from her about a month before she passed. "Do you remember anything weird happening around that time?" She was quiet for a second too long. Then came the slow inhale, the kind people do when they're deciding whether or not to lie. "Well, she was tired." I mean, she was in hospice for 8 weeks. That's like over 3 months, you know. I didn't correct her. I let the math error sit there like a marker. People catch that kind of thing. They comment on it. They remember it. "Right," I said, "but do you remember if Kara ever took Mom's phone away? Or blocked anyone?" Aunt Bev sighed. And that sigh, Jesus, that told me everything. She was tired, sure, but not of the question. She was tired of pretending not to know the answer. "Kara said your texts were stressing your mom out," she muttered. "She said you were trying to guilt trip her into coming down. Said it was making Janet cry." "Was it?" I asked. "I don't know, David. I wasn't there all the time. I only visited on weekends. Kara said it was best to keep things calm." "Did you see Mom upset when you were there?" Another long pause. Then finally, "Not at first. But near the end, She seemed scared. Jumped at little things. Didn't want to be alone, but didn't want to talk either. Just stared out the window a lot. I hung up not long after that. I didn't yell. Didn't accuse. Didn't say what I wanted to say, which was, you let her manipulate everyone. You let her keep me away. But I didn't need to. Aunt Bev knew. She just didn't want to carry that guilt out loud. After the call, I went into the closet where we'd stashed the last box of Mom's things, the ones Kara hadn't hoarded. In the bottom was her old iPad, the pink case still smudged with fingerprints, the screen a little cracked from where she dropped it on her kitchen floor last Christmas. It had been dead for weeks, but I plugged it in and waited. 10 minutes. 20. Then the screen flickered on. The lock screen was still there. One chance. I typed in David 1979. It opened. Just like that. I sat there, the iPad glowing in my lap like some ancient artifact, waiting to tell me everything Kara never would. I didn't know what I expected, maybe photos, maybe nothing, but what I found. What I found was something no one was supposed to see. And it changed everything. The moment the iPad screen unlocked, I knew this wasn't just about settling a score anymore. It was something heavier, something that lived deeper than anger, the kind of thing that settles into your bones and makes you question every memory you thought was yours. The home screen was untouched, just a picture of my mom smiling on a beach from 4 summers back, hair blowing wild and free, wind in her face, before all the machines and pain and whispered goodbyes. I stared at it longer than I probably should have, afraid of what came next and almost wishing it would stay that way, just a window to a better time, before Kara twisted everything until even the truth bent to her will. But curiosity's a nasty itch. It doesn't just want to be scratched, it demands blood under your fingernails. There weren't many apps, and most of what I tapped on seemed empty or already backed up somewhere I couldn't reach. Then I opened the voice memo app, mostly out of habit, half expecting to hear nothing but maybe the odd grocery list or reminder to take her pills. But that's when I saw it, one folder, not named, just marked with a heart emoji and the number 7. I hesitated, then tapped it open. 7 recordings. Not one of them longer than 3 minutes. And from the first second of the first one, I knew I was listening to something no one was ever meant to hear, at least, not until now. Kara's voice came through sharp, high-pitched, and furious. No, Mom, you're just forgetting again. I already told you I handled it. Why do you keep bringing up David? He's not here, is he? He never is. There was shuffling, maybe a drawer slamming, followed by Mom's voice, quiet and trembling. He said he wanted to come. I told him not to because I'm trying to protect you. Jesus, you're impossible. Do you want to die in peace or with your golden boy making it all about him again? Then the recording clicked off. I sat there, hand frozen over the screen, as if touching anything else might erase what I just heard. The next few were worse. In one, Kara's yelling over the sound of a beeping machine, berating Mom for not remembering which medication she took that morning. In another, she's accusing her of faking confusion just to make Kara look bad. There's one with my mom crying quietly in the background while Kara huffs and slams cabinet doors, muttering something about being stuck in this damn house. But it was the last one, the 7th memo, that punched a hole straight through my chest. It was quiet at first. No background noise. No yelling. Just the soft wheeze of Mom's breathing, and then her voice frail, but steady. David, if you're hearing this, it means I couldn't stop her in time. I didn't want you to see me like this. I thought I was protecting you by telling you not to come, but I think I just let her win. She says awful things about you, things I know aren't true. I've tried to stop her, but I'm tired, baby. I'm so tired. Just know you were always my heart. You always have been. Don't let Kara twist that. Please. It ended there. No long goodbye. No tears. Just those words, so small and simple, and yet they cut deeper than anything Kara had ever said into that damn mic. I sat there on the edge of the bed, holding that pink iPad like it might break if I breathed too hard, heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. I wanted to scream, to throw it against the wall, to drive across the state line and slam the thing down in front of Kara's smug face. But instead, I did the only thing that made sense. I forwarded the files to myself. Every last one of them. I wanted proof. I wanted them saved somewhere Kara couldn't reach or delete or twist. I typed in my email, added a little note for myself, just one word, truth, and hit send. Only I didn't just send it to myself. When I tapped the screen again, I noticed another email had auto-filled underneath mine. Kara's. Because of course she had access to Mom's iPad account too. I didn't even see it until it was too late. Sent. Gone. Every single file. Every memo. Every word. All of it now sitting in Kara's inbox too. I stared at the screen like maybe I could will the message back, like maybe if I moved fast enough I could unsend it, drag it back into digital limbo where she'd never see it. But I was too late. I had just handed Kara the very thing she'd spent the past year trying to bury. And I had no idea what she was going to do with it. By the next morning, it had already started. The first missed call came through at 6:21 in the morning, which meant Kara either hadn't slept or had bolted upright in bed as soon as her phone buzzed with that little ding announcing a new email. The call started slow at first, like she was easing into her panic, but by the time I'd poured my coffee and fed the dog, she'd hit 12 missed calls, and the voicemails had started rolling in one after the other like a domino line set on fire. The first message was a quiet, shaky whisper. David, I got your, whatever this is. Please call me. I think you're misunderstanding things. The second was shorter, clipped, and colder. This isn't fair. You know this isn't what it looks like. The third one, well, the third one is where she cracked. You have no idea what it was like. She snapped, her voice full of venom and that old familiar control she used to weaponize during family dinners, Christmas arguments, and every single check-in. Call that wasn't really a check-in at all, but an interrogation with frosting on top. You were gone, David. You left me to deal with all of it. As if I'd never tried to come. As if she hadn't been the one drawing a line between Mom and me with every passive-aggressive excuse and backhanded dismissal. But I didn't listen to every voicemail. Some were just sobbing, others were 6 or 7 seconds of dead silence, like she didn't mean to call or maybe couldn't find the right words to say between gasps and panic. And then there were the bribes. David, I'll talk to the aunts, okay? I'll tell them you were there for Mom in your own way. We can figure this out. Just take the damn files down. Take them down? Not a chance. I didn't respond to her. Not even once. I let her voice fill the air through my phone speaker while I stood in my kitchen, listening with one hand on the counter and the other on my coffee mug like I was watching a tornado hit a house I used to live in, but had long since moved out of. Then came the one that made me laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was just so damn predictable. It was Aunt Linda this time. What the hell did you send her? She barked, her voice like a mix of chain-smoked cigarettes and barely contained rage. You're going to destroy your sister with this crap. Destroy her? She had done that all by herself. I hung up. No response, no text, no explanation. I wasn't playing cleanup crew this time, and I sure as hell wasn't going to pretend the recordings didn't exist. In fact, I did the opposite. I logged into the old family Google Drive, the one we used to store Christmas photos, baby pictures, scanned recipe cards from Grandma, and other nostalgic digital junk, and uploaded the entire folder of voice memos into a brand new directory labeled simply Mom, Final Days. I didn't blast it out. I didn't write some dramatic message or go on Facebook and tag the whole family like Kara would have done. I just quietly added the files to the drive and left them there, knowing full well who had access, who would eventually stumble across them, and how long it would take before the fire really spread. By the end of the week, Kara's husband had moved out. I didn't hear it from her, of course. I heard it from Eli, of all people, my old friend from high school who I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. He found my number through an old mutual friend and texted me out of the blue. Saw the folder. The message read, I always knew she was full of shit. Eli used to date Kara, back when we were all stupid teenagers, and even then he'd warned me she had a mean streak the size of a football field. But I didn't expect him to reach out now, not after all this time, not after the silence that settled between us after graduation like a fog that never lifted. We talked on the phone that night for the first time since the early 2000s, and he filled me in on things I hadn't even thought to ask about. "She always acted like she was carrying the world," he said, voice low and worn with age, but still sharp. "Always made sure everyone knew how hard she had it. She even told her husband she handled everything with your mom alone, that you bailed." "Yeah, I figured," I muttered. "But here's the kicker," he said, suddenly quiet. "You don't know about the will, do you?" My stomach dropped. I stood still, phone pressed to my ear, pulse thudding in my throat. "What will?" I asked, even though I already felt like I knew the answer. There was a long pause on the other end, like Eli was deciding how deep he wanted to go. "I worked for the lawyer your mom used," he said finally. "Interned there for a while before I left for good. There was something weird, something about a letter Kara brought in, claiming your mom wanted to change her beneficiaries. But it didn't match any of her other signatures. She was shaky, sick, and they didn't approve it. But Kara, she tried, man. She tried to cut you out completely." And just like that, the last piece of the puzzle slammed into place. It took less than 3 hours to verify what Eli had told me, but it felt like I aged 10 years in the process. I went through the contact list on Mom's old iPad and found the number for the law office where she'd done all her estate planning, Thompson and Rourke, a small but reputable firm that had been handling family wills for 2 generations in that sleepy town where everyone still waves at each other at four-way stops. I didn't expect anyone to remember a case from a woman who died quietly and without much legal drama, at least. Not that they knew of yet, but when I explained who I was and what I was trying to understand, the receptionist transferred me to a paralegal named Sarah who, as it turned out, remembered the day Kara walked into their office like she was the queen of grief itself. "I remember her because she came in with a letter," Sarah said, her voice uncertain but willing. "She was trying to push this last-minute change, something about your mom wanting to take a different direction with her assets. But it was messy." She was flustered. "The letter was handwritten in blue ink, and your mother always signed her legal documents in black. She even spelled your middle name wrong." I asked her if anything was processed. "Nothing was filed," she said quickly. "Our managing partner flagged it right away. It didn't match your mother's signature, and when we asked for clarification, your sister got defensive and said your mom wasn't well enough to speak directly. It set off some alarms, so we told her we couldn't move forward without confirmation. We never heard back." That was the moment it became clear Kara hadn't just manipulated the emotional narrative, hadn't just staged a performance in front of family and friends at the funeral. She had tried to rob me. Quietly. Permanently. And it wasn't even about the money, not really. It was about erasing me from the record, making sure the story ended with her as the sole, shining daughter who carried the burden alone while I stayed cast in the role of the absent son. I could have gone public with it. I could have shamed her in court, dragged the forged letter into a courtroom, called witnesses, blown up the quiet little image she tried to preserve. But something about it felt beneath me. And I don't mean that in a holier-than-thou way. I mean it would have felt like letting her pull me into the mud pit she'd been rolling in for years. Instead, I filed for a formal mediation using Mom's original will, digitally notarized, dated, clean. Her original instructions were clear. The estate, modest as it was to be split between Kara and me, with a small percentage left for a local women's shelter that Mom volunteered at every Thursday for nearly a decade before she got sick. It took a few weeks, but the court agreed. The original will stood, and Kara didn't contest it, not legally anyway. I think by then, the panic had fully set in. Her husband was gone. Her reputation within the family had cracked down the middle. Friends stopped returning her calls. Aunt Bev was taking a step back to process things, and Aunt Linda was avoiding everyone entirely. Her world had shrunk, and all the walls were glass now. When the funds were distributed, I took my half and made one transfer, directly to the shelter. I attached a letter in my mom's handwriting that I found in one of her old notebooks, the one where she used to jot down grocery lists and affirmations. The letter was short, just 2 sentences. Helping others is how we stay alive in spirit. Please keep doing good work. The local paper ran a small story on it, just a few paragraphs in the Sunday edition, titled, "Late Volunteer's Son Donates Generously in Her Name." They even used an old picture of her, standing outside the shelter, laughing with her arms around 2 other women, wind tangling her hair, alive in that photo in a way she hadn't been in her final months. I didn't send Kara the article. I didn't have to. She found it 2 days later and showed up at my front porch at 9:46 at night, wearing sweatpants, no makeup, and eyes like someone who hadn't slept in days. Her voice was already cracking when I opened the door, and by the time she spoke, she wasn't yelling or spinning some new story. She was broken in that quiet, bitter way that doesn't come from guilt, it comes from losing control. "You ruined me," she said, her voice shaking like it might fall apart if I breathed too loud. I stood in the doorway, letting the cool air curl between us. I looked her straight in the eyes, and for the first time in my entire life, I saw fear there, not fear of me, but fear of herself. Fear of who she was without the lies, without the spotlight, without someone else to blame. "No," I said. "You did that yourself." Then I closed the door. No dramatic music. No slow motion scene. Just the quiet sound of the door latching shut, and the kind of silence that feels earned. I didn't speak at the funeral. I'm speaking now.